Okay. Yeah, so the Lord is actually the supreme leader of all varieties of living entities. As we know in Bhagavad Gita, he claims to be the father of all varieties of living entities. But the Lord is not only the father in terms of the seed giving father of just providing the seed. He's not the kind of father who just leaves the mother alone. You know, some persons have posited that God is dead, or God is like the contemporary men of this world, where they just provide the seed and then they just walk away. So, in other words, the Lord seems to be absent from his creation. But actually, that is false. The Lord is not that kind of father. He actually provides facility for his progeny. And so in this chapter, you hear about uh, his activity of um, giving inspiration and giving benediction to the new heirs of the world. So the Pracetas, their father was King Prachinaparisha, and they went to the forest to perform austerities so that they can become strong. So power in this universe is acquired through austerity and penances. And they want to be strong, not just to lord it over a material nature for their own sense gratification, but to actually perform the function of Janardana. As we know, this is another name of Krishna, Janardana, which means one who gives dan to the jana. Jan means charity. And so when you put it together, it means the maintainer of the living entities. And so the Lord, um, in order for him to actually perform this function and manifest his mercy in this way, giving maintenance to all the living entities, he actually empowers different living entities. And he has a system for how that empowerment continues on from generation to generation. And so the way this, and then, so what we're hearing here is the Kshatriyas are specifically, these are living entities who have the propensity to perform this function of maintaining other living entities. And so here, after the Prachetas have performed their austerities for 10,000 years, the Lord, with his beauty, is going to inspire them to actually perform this function properly. In other words, in the mode of goodness, keeping the form of the Lord in the forefront of their intelligence, they'll actually make good decisions. So this samskar of actually seeing the Lord face to face, when a Kshatriya has seen the Lord face to face, he will always be a benefactor to the jana, to all the living entities. As we know, Bhagavatam is famous for these kinds of narrations where the Lord personally inspires the administrators to actually not exploit the persons, not act in a demoniac way, but to actually maintain them and do so in the mode of goodness according to his system. So here, the Lord appearing with these features, um, with a helmet that is on his head, and he has weapons. So the king, as well, similarly, being a representative of God, he also appears with these paraphernalia. And indeed, the Kshatriyas as well of yore, they are trained also to actually have physical beauty. Um, some of you may know there's this practice called calisthenics, which is a Greek practice. So it's a form of training using your own body weight to train. And basically, the contemporary form that is popular that we see it is like in uh, gymnastics, male gymnastics, um, where you really have to have a lot of upper body strength to perform some of the different activities. And so the idea is actually these activities, they increase your bodily beauty. That is the transliterative of this calisthenics. So similarly, even and this practice was, according to its history, it was done by the Greek soldiers. Yes. So many people know that even young men who go to the military and follow, do their military training, if they get into it, their bodily beauty naturally increases. They become strong, um, and they're controlling their tongue, they're eating right. And so in this way, this bodily beauty becomes an inspiration for others to actually take shelter of such a qualified person. So the Lord has this feature. So this feature is actually stemming from the Lord. And then the Kshatriyas of yore as well, they also had weapons. So here the Lord is described um, as each of his hands are carrying different types of weapons. As we know, with the Sanskrit word Shastra, so Shastra, it means it's so it means weapon, but uh, we commonly use it to also refer to the scriptures. So the purpose of Shastra, it means that which cuts down. And so the Shastra is meant to cut the hard knot in the heart for, and this knot is symbolically our attachment to this body, our attachment to sense gratification, our attachment to the idea that what will actually fulfill us is matter. And so the Shastra cuts that. So that's on a symbolic level. And then on a literal level, actual weapons carried by administrators, carried by Kshatriyas, they cut down enemies, they cut down different features which may arise, different practices which may arise in human society, which obstruct um, the person from realizing their identity. In other words, things which uh, reinforce this hard knot in the heart. So if the living entity is under the protection of the Kshatriya are increasing in their sinful activities, increasing in their meat eating, intoxication, gambling, illicit sex, being these enemies to the soul of lust, or actually they described as whips, lust, greed, anger, envy, madness, and illusion. If these features are increasing, then the Kshatriya actually has to act. He has to take administrative action, executive action, to actually cut these down with these weapons. So here we also see that things which may not seem to be efficient in cutting, such as a lotus flower, is also described as a weapon. So, as we know, Lord Balaram being um, as good as Krishna, he demonstrated that he can even use a blade of grass to cut. And he used it to cut the head of Ramaharshana Sutta, who's the father of Sutta Goswami. And there, what the Lord was cutting was he cut off his head, literally, but he was also cutting the ego of Ramaharshana Sutta, that actually he couldn't honor Sri Balaram. He couldn't honor Sri Balaram according to his position as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so the Lord, being one of his, having appeared with Krishna to cut down irreligious practices, he was obliged to cut down Ramaharshana Sutta with a blade of grass. And then we know of Lord Chaitanya, when he appeared in Kali Yuga, being the Yuga avatar, he actually cut down irreligion with his beauty. Hmm. So just as a lotus flower is very beautiful, so similarly, the Lord, being very attractive, is able to cut down this hard knot in the heart. So if you actually get darshan of Lord Chaitanya, you will not identify with the body. You will, in the effulgence, the brilliant, shining golden form of Lord Chaitanya, you'll actually see your identity, your original ontological form in relation to Krishna. And so, in this way, the Lord's beauty is what's actually doing the cutting. It's attracting you. It's so powerful that it actually attracts you. So, even in the same way, with the dazzling golden form of Sri Radha Damodar, the deity is also meant to cut down our attachment to this body, our attachment to family members and friends, um, who may not be favorable for our advancement in Krishna consciousness. And obviously, this is time specific. Um, sometimes they're favorable, sometimes not. And so you as a practitioner have to see in certain situations, when is such association favorable? Is there an opportunity for you to advance yourself in Krishna consciousness and to affect them in their advancement and the evolution of their consciousness? And if no such opportunity arises, but you're obliged to um, cooperate with their sense gratificatory activities, then yes, you're meant to not participate. In other words, redirect your attention towards the form of Sri Radha Damodar. So the lifestyle of having a life centered around the deity, whether you are here at Gitanagari or you are in an urban environment, the Lord's beauty, uh, His benediction, uh, all day the Lord is standing, offering benedictions to pilgrims that come to see Him. And so that's meant to cut down the hard knot in the heart. Then Prabhupada writes here as well, is that another feature of the Lord is that you cannot make the argument that the Lord is impersonal. So if you accept the feature of the Lord being the supreme controller, this supreme control, you can come up with a theory that advocates for an impersonal type of control, uh, an all-pervasive feature, um, or yes, an all-pervasive feature. And so with the impersonal doctrine, uh, Brahma Satyam, Jagan Nitya, that truth is Brahman, and this Brahman is the effulgence of the Lord, according to uh, the conclusion, according to the Vedanta, which is or at least according to the Bhakti Vedanta, the conclusion through the eyes of the Vaishnavas of the Vedanta Sutra, the conclusion of this Brahma Satyam is that Brahman is actually the feature of the effulgence of the form of the Lord, not that the form of the Lord is downstream from that effulgence. So that's where the main point of contention is here. So, but Prabhupada here is stating that no, the Lord, his form, it's actually you can't accuse Brahman, as being impersonal because these features of him carrying weapons, um, having a face, um, these are all indications that he is actually a person. And so part of when you accept that the Lord is personal, then you see that he is accompanied by a variety he also has different features. It's not that it's just one homogeneous um, characteristic, which is just light. No, there's varieties, there's variegated. Uh, the Lord has variegated energies. And so, just as a king, Prabhupada is writing, a king is always accompanied by his ministers, secretaries, commanders. Lord Vishnu is also accompanied by his followers. the demigods, great sages, saintly persons, and so on. So here the contention with the impersonal doctrine is that how does Brahman, supreme para Brahman, how is he the supreme control of the universe? Um, so according to the Bhaktivedanta conclusion is that the way the Lord effects supreme control is through the variety, his variegated energies. That's how he does it. And the variegated energies, the thread running through all of them is personalism, is that all these variegated energies are persons. And here Lord Vishnu is appearing before the Pracetas, the demigods, they are persons. Sages, great sages are persons. Saintly persons are also persons. So the Lord, this one entity, there's one supreme eternal who has become many eternals. And him becoming many eternals, each of those eternals have the same characteristics as him. So just as the supreme eternal has personality, he's a person, he has feelings, emotions, and he has power. So in the same way, with the minor eternals that he is maintaining, the subordinate eternals, they too are persons with feelings, emotions, power, characteristics, etc. So this is how Parabrahman actually affects control through this universe and in the rest of the universes. It's not through primarily or exclusively through his omnipotent, all-pervasive feature. And indeed, according to the Bhaktivedanta, the Vaishnava conclusion is that even the all-pervasive feature of the Lord is also personal. So you have uh, Garbhadan, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, or you have sorry, the cause of the entire creation is Karanodakshay Vishnu. So he's the causal Vishnu. And then those causal Vishnu, different universes come from his pores of his body. And then in each of those universes, they like bubbles. Then Karanodakshay Vishnu enters those as a person, Garbhadakshay Vishnu. And he lies at the bottom of each universe. So just as he was lying outside the universe in an ocean, similarly he lies inside the universe in an ocean. And then there's Garbhadakshay Vishnu, then to actually expand everywhere, he expands himself as Hirodakshay Vishnu, first of all. So he has another planet which has a milk ocean, and then he expands there. And then this Kshirodakshay Vishnu expands in every single atom. So all the building blocks of the universe, the fiery element, earth, water, ether, mind, intelligence, this Vishnu has expanded and is there in each of those building blocks. And so all the time element, it's measured through the vibrations of different atomic structures. And so the way empiricists see the time element is through these vibrations. And so they see the transformation of everything coming into being, growing, developing some byproducts, dwindling and vanishing. They see it through the vibrations of these atoms. But actually, the cause of these vibrations are why they enter into different phases is that the Lord has entered personally. He has entered personally in these building blocks of the universe. So the Lord's personality, this is the point, is that the basis of all the features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His form as a deity, his form as himself when he appears before um, devotees such as the Pracetas, his form as he appears in the heart of the living entity, and his form as he appears in all of the atoms of the universe and indeed the entire creation, it's all personal. And so the basis of para Brahman is personal. It's not impersonal. So this is the conclusion of all the analytical study of the Vaishnavas, headed by the greatest empiricist, the Lord himself, Kapila Kapila, this is his conclusion. And so we take it that this is the actual fact and reality. So this is an important feature of the Lord, being uh, being surrounded by different associates. And this is very nicely described in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 14, in which the lamentation of Chitraketu, in which he's lamenting. So Chitraketu, he has 10 million wives, and none of them, all of them are barren. So Chitraketu has been trying to marry one after the other, trying to get an heir uh, to his uh, to his kingdom. But unfortunately, he cannot get an heir. And so as a result, he's lamenting. And so the great sage Angira comes in his court and he says to him, "My dear king, I hope that your body and mind and your royal associates and paraphernalia are well. When the seven properties of material nature, the total material energy, the ego, and the five objects of sense gratification are in proper order, the living entity within the material elements is happy. Without these seven elements, one cannot exist. Similarly, a king is always protected by seven elements: his instructor, Swami or Guru, his ministers, his kingdom, his fort, his treasury, his royal order, and his friends." So the Lord is the example for actually how to effect leadership and control. Uh, so the living entities, as Angira Muni is saying here, is that in the same way, if you want to be happy materially in this world, you are the king of the city of your city of nine gates. And so the things you have to take care of, the total material energy, these seven properties, material energy, the ego, the five objects of the sense gratification. Similarly, even a king, if he wants to be happy, um, that he's fulfilling his dharma, he has to ensure that his guru is satisfied, his ministers are acting in the right way, his kingdom with all the living entities, his fort that protects the kingdom, that's the security, his treasury. Does he have enough money to actually ensure that the local economy is going on? And also he can continue to maintain protection over the citizens, his royal order. So all the descendants of the court, they are also acting in the right way, following his example. And his friends, the king is a person. He too wants to be entertained, wants to form a relationship, experience the rasa of friendship, uh, you know, and you know, just connecting. Because remember, he's following the Lord's example. The Lord is a person, and so too the king is also a person. So the Lord as well, he's showing this example to the Pracetas, is that if you are to actually fulfill the order of your Father, just as you can see, I'm surrounded by demigods, sages, and this is what they're doing. In the same way, you too should be surrounded by these seven elements, and you'll actually be able to fulfill the order of your Father, and you'll actually be happy by taking care of these seven elements. So, in the same way with us as well, we are being called. Um, we are being called to action, seeing the leadership of the Lord, how inspirational it is, and also how instructive and how much of benediction it has. We too are being uh, attracted by the Lord to also take on a leadership role in self-realization. As we know, in the Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami, after studying all the scriptures of the world. He condensed the all the essential precepts and instructions from all the scriptures of the world into the summary, a condensed summary study of his work in the form of this Upadeshamrita, or the nectar of instruction. And the first verse deals with this subject, is that if you want to be a leader of the world, if indeed you want to have followers, not just followers on the public internet in the form of Instagram or Facebook, but if you actually want people to follow you, then this is what you must do. Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Dharapasta Vegam. Etan Veganyo Vishaheta Dhira, Sarvam Apimam Prithivim Sashishyat. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So following this instruction, it's actually not an egotistical thing. It's not that one who tries to control the tongue is driven by personal aggrandizement. Oh, I want to be the next billionaire or millionaire. Oh, I want to. Yes, you may, have this desire, but when most people actually have this idea in their head, they want dominion, but they can't do it. Yeah. So the persons who do it, uh, in order for you to actually go on this path, which is what Rupa Goswami is advising, you have to free yourself from this perverted idea that there can just be some kind of king to lord it over others. Remember, even the Kshatriyas themselves, in order for them to actually accumulate this power, they perform austerities, and these austerities basically strip you um, of this false conception, and you actually see yourself as being dependent on the Supreme Lord. And so once you're ready to rule, your ego has actually been purified. You see yourself as being a servant of the Supreme Controller and not the Supreme Controller himself. And so your service in controlling a very large tract of land with many citizens, you don't see it as this is due to me, but you see it as, no, I'm just doing it as a service for the Supreme Control. And you inspire your citizens to know that, to actually be conscious of that, and to know that our kingdom, all it is, it's one sacrificial fire meant to offer oblations to the Supreme Yagefar. So from our eating, sleeping, mating, defending, on a household level, all these units are contributing to this sacrificial fire. And then the king is coordinating all of these sacrifices so that these oblations go to the Yageshwar. And the end result is that everybody is happy. Everybody is conscious of their relationship with the Lord, and the king himself is also conscious of this. So in the same way, with yes, the application of this idea in Kali Yuga is actually to control your senses, tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. So by doing this, you'll actually be happy. All the elements in your city of 9 gates, as Angira Muni is saying, the total material energy, the ego, and the 5 objects of sense gratification will be in proper order. And in this way, you'll actually be happy. And when you do this, you'll actually be able to make others happy as well. Because you'll be a leader. That's what Rupa Goswami says. Not everybody can do it, but those who do it, those who come onto the path, this is the way to do it. And you can get whatever, come with whatever motivation you have, but just follow the process and you'll be purified. And so as we know, as Rupa Goswami is saying here, it all begins with the tongue. And even to achieve the perfection of the Pracetas, of having the Lord, um, in your personal association, to actually see the Lord face to face, in his full glory, with sages, demigods, in 8 arms, conch shell, disc, club, helmet, dazzling face, beautiful disposition, uh, smiling towards you. If you actually want this perfection, it all begins with the tongue. And as we know, there's another verse which Rupa Goswami wrote: Atashi Krishna namadi na pavet prayam indriya sevan mukhe hi jivato swayam eva spuratyadaha. So before you can realize the glories of the Lord, his qualities, his characteristics, his paraphernalia, his pastimes, and his dham, all these varieties. Before you can actually realize this, it all begins with the tongue. So we should know that this call to leadership, it's not an egotistical call. It's actually an ontological activity. If you want to actually realize your relationship with the Lord, you have to take leadership within your body. You have to control these elements, beginning with the tongue. And the tongue is it's well controlled by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So let's all be inspired to take. Uh, mm, okay, let's all be inspired to take inspiration from the perfection of the Pracetas, seeing the Lord face to face. They are destined to become rulers of the world. So, in the same way, we can become rulers of our own body through chanting Hare Krishna. And when we perfect that, then we'll be able to take up to Lord Chaitanya's order of becoming a guru. Uh, whether you are a Parivrajagacharya guru traveling all over the world, or you're just a local guru, everybody can actually do this. And it goes part and parcel with Krishna consciousness. You get Krishna, you give Krishna to others. And so this is an ontological activity. It has nothing to do with your nature. It's just a question of how much of Krishna is in your heart. So let's all fill our hearts with Krishna. And in this way, we'll be inspired and we'll have the means and power to give it to others. Hare Krishna. Are there any thoughts, comments, questions, reflections, or contentions? Mhm. Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Having trouble with my computer here.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really have much to offer. Thank you for a nice class. I have just one minor correction. Lord Balaram did not cut off the head of Ramaharshana Sutta. He touched him with the tip of Usha grass, and just by contacting the tip of that blade of grass, Ramaharshana died.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for that correction. So everybody is inspired to take on this call for leadership on an ontological level by chanting Hare Krishna, filling our hearts with Krishna, and in this way, at some point in our lives, we'll be able to give it to others. If you're already giving it to others, all glories to your efforts. However, there's no limit to how much of Krishna we can give to others. And so the aspiration is to give as much, more and more and more with each increasing year. And to do that, you need to perfect Krishna consciousness more and more and more. So that means to control um, our tongue more and more, be attentive during our japa more and more and more. There's no limit because remember, Rupa Goswami, he says, if I had millions of tongues and millions of ears to chant Hare Krishna, then I'll begin to relish the holy name. So because the holy name is not different from the Lord, Nija Sarva Shaktis, he's invested all his energies in his name. There's actually no limit to how much of Krishna you can relish. Um, so similarly, there's no limit to how attentive you can be to the Lord's holy name. We want to increase our attention more and more and more. And in this way, our dominion or our sphere of influence on others in Krishna consciousness can increase more and more and more. There's 7.2 billion people on this planet. And so there's unlimited opportunities. There's many living entities uh, who need Krishna consciousness. And so, yes, let us all be inspired by this perfection of the Pracetas. Any thoughts to our physicist? Well, any thoughts to my? Oh, you missed it. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, so just appreciations from the devotees online. Thank you for joining us, and we shall see you tomorrow. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Go Pramanande. Haribol.